everybody, and welcome to the Salt Grain Podcast. I am your host, Holly McNamara, and I am here not in studio, but in virtual studio today with Patricia McHale in San Diego, and I'll give you her background in a second, and Christine Peake in, well, actually, what actual town are you in? I could say Los Angeles, but we all know there are different areas like Santa Monica.
I'm in Santa Monica, as you can tell by, I'm actually at the beach.
Now, Christine is actually a stand-up comedian, and we're going to talk about that later. So, Patricia, just to give the listeners a background on you awesome ladies, Patricia McHale is a holistic health, I want to get this right, so I'm reading it.
Sure.
A holistic health professional, practitioner, and author, holistic therapist to the stars and celebrities with an exclusive client base. And Christine Peake is of her own Peake Group, PR. She's the leading Hollywood publicist and stand-up comedian in the area. So, and she's been with A-list celebrities. We can talk about that some more too.
When you say being with, are you like saying I've slept with them? Because I'm taking the fifth.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't mean that. I meant she's been on stage with, she's shared a stage with. Oh God, I didn't realize I worded that way. Sorry. I'm usually a lot more
warmed up here, ladies. We're all friends.
Exactly. And I also, Patricia, want to talk about the difference between holistic health practitioner and massage therapy, because I learned a lot, and I've been calling you a professional massage therapist ever since I met you years ago. And I'm like,
yes,
I'm so ignorant. So actually, can you explain?
Yeah.
Let's start with that, and then we'll talk about what Christine does.
Sure. So massage therapists get like 500 hours of training, and they learn anatomy, physiology, and mostly just rub the body, right? So for me, I'm a holistic health practitioner. And that includes not just massage that's integrated, but like it's more of like the whole body, mind, more of an Asian philosophy or Oriental medicine of just, mental, physical, spiritual, very, very leaning into like more of life coaching.
Yeah.
But integrating massage with that. So it's more of a healing modality of a little bit of everything, the whole experience, body, mind, and spirit.
Oh, it's amazing. And so
yeah,
I'm going to talk about this later, but Patricia
Sure.
has been that healer for me without even like, it wasn't in a professional way. You were my friend doing this, and you guys have no idea. Like I wouldn't have survived without you. And I'm in all seriousness. Like, I mean, I would have physically survived, but mentally I wouldn't have survived.
Holly,
and
you didn't survive, darling. You didn't.
What's that?
I said you didn't survive.
Yeah, it's been. It was a wild ride.
It was. Yeah. I definitely still want to talk about that too on today, so we can get the listeners to really understand the context of our friendship, because it starts with what happened back in 2010, and it started then. So it's important, I think, for the listeners to know how we know each other, how we relate to certain things on the outside world. And
this was the Delivering Happiness tour.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
And how that all went down, and like our outlook on life now, and just how we see things now. And that's why it's so important for me to do this podcast with you guys, because the podcast is all about being real, being a public figure, being out in the open, and having to maintain your authenticity while still being public facing. It's a hard thing to do. And we've had to do it, all three of us, in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, Christine, tell us what you do and kind of the journey you're on.
Well, I work in Los Angeles, although I live in Santa Monica. I'm like a Stepford wife over here without the husband, quite frankly, with the getting their nails done. But my real job is press, media, PR. I rep brands, I rep people, I do huge events. So that's what I do for my job. I write articles too. And during lockdown, I was very frustrated with the way the world was going. I saw the woke thing happening, quite frankly, very soon. And I couldn't cope with it. I knew that we were heading for a nightmare, and people told me, Christine's be okay. Yeah, well, it wasn't. So I needed, because I can get dark in my head. And I needed to cheer myself up. So I would call my friends and go on a rant and tell them, I can't take this, going on with this woke chick. They're canceling Mr. Potato Head. I'm like canceling black. I'm like, white rights. Like, you can look for it wherever you look. And my friends were laughing, and they were like, take that anger and make it into humor and be funny and go do something with it. So I did.
I
So
love
I just
that.
started.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I mean, you just really took it to another level.
You were hilarious. It helped me get through COVID. Oh my gosh. Sage and I were watching it every time.
There was, there was only, everybody was posting food. And I don't care what anybody, although I just sent you what I put for breakfast. I'm just keeping it real.
Right.
But like everybody was talking about Netflix and food and pizza deliveries. I remember posting a video where I put all my coats and hats on my couch like they were humans and made them cups of tea and started talking to them, screaming day four, and I had no idea how long this was going to go for. None of us did,
Yeah.
But I found some humor. I found some new friends. I found like a community there. I lost Lisa Lent, who you both know. I lost my best friend during lockdown too. So that was a lot of pain. And she actually FaceTimed me, basically to say goodbye. And she said to me, life is short, right? And if there's anything you need to do it now, because there's nothing guaranteed. And I'd always talk to her in London, I wanted to do stand up. So like my first show I did was actually to raise awareness for cancer,
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
So there was like a fixed, and I still, when I have a show, I always bring in cancer. I always bring in the veterans. These are things I care about. So rather than just do a show, I think you can bring it all together. And most shows are just shows. I do the whole red carpet, drinks, bring in a cause, because I like it to be a happening, because people can't afford to buy a ticket, to drink minimum. It's a lot, to keep asking everybody to come out. People don't have any money. I mean, bloody hell. I mean, eggs are $8.99 where I live. Like, it matters, so it's trying to give something back that's not going to make everybody feel embarrassed that they can't come. So I think humor is free. And I think it's also very freeing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
It's everything.
It applies to everything too, because when I'm applying to jobs, or when I'm looking at working on a project, or working with a team at the town, whatever it is, you need to have humor. It's so important, especially through hard times. And when you start thinking, like, when you don't find yourself laughing anymore, that, at least for me, like, that becomes a sign, like I'm just not doing well if I'm not laughing.
That kind of brings us back to how we all met. Like when we working with Zappos. I mean, one of you should lead on this because I came in later. I'm not as important in the story.
Oh, stop it. You were important. I think I brought you on. I actually introduced you to Tony. Yeah. And I was excited to bring you on. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Holly.
so let's get into that. So because this is important for the listeners to understand, and they've heard me on if they heard the other episodes, they heard me talk about Tony and how I knew him. But if they haven't heard, I'll try to summarize quickly my end, and then I'll get into how we met. So Tony Hsieh was the CEO of Zappos, Zappos.com. They sold shoes online for a long time. He came in as an investor and then became their CEO and bought out the original founder. This was in 1999. And after he sold his company, Link Exchange, to Microsoft for 264 million, I believe that's what it was. So he, in 2004, I was flying back and forth from San Diego to Vegas for my engineering job. And a mutual friend of mine and Tony's that I went to college with he said, "Hey, you got to hang out with my poker buddy. He just moved his company, Zappos, to Vegas, and you're in Vegas all the time." So he gave us each other's information. I had no idea who this guy was. No one knew what Zappos was. No one knew, and I didn't know anything. I just knew it was my friend's poker buddy, and he was quiet. So he gave me his number and we talked, and we didn't talk much because he doesn't talk much, as he's not a talkative guy, you know. But he'd invite me everywhere. We went to dinners, we went to clubs before dinner, we had drinks, like we were always having fun. And
Yes.
and then in 2010, I'd stayed in touch with Tony after I stopped that engineering type of work. I went into construction, stayed in touch with Tony. But in 2010, I was like, I need to get out. The economy's bad. I have a great construction management job, but I need to get out. I can't live in San Diego if I quit my job. So you know what? I'm going to move to Vegas and start the concierge business that I've had as a hobby for 7 years. So I stayed with Tony, and every time I went to Vegas to look for work so I could start this business. And Tony started writing his book, which I also had no idea. And I still, at this point, since from 2004 to 2010, for 6 years, 7 years, I still didn't really understand like Zappos, and I knew it was a great company, but it wasn't anything to do with our friendship. So anyway, so I would stay with Tony, and I would, eventually he interviewed me without me realizing it, brought me on and said, "Well, I'm going to hire you to handle everything." And I'm like, "I don't know what that means." He's like, "I need help launching my book." I'm like, "Okay, I know you just wrote a book." He's like, "Well, but I'm launching it in April and I need help because my assistant Liz at Zappos, she's having a baby. She ended up having it early, right after I came
Yeah.
on." And then Mimi, which we will talk about, Mimi, aka Jennifer Pham, PHAM.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
She I just spelled it forever. So I had been friendly with her through Tony for the entire, the day that I met him, I met her. So I'm like, what is she's always around, and I'd hang out with her socially and in Los Angeles, and I'm like, what is she doing? And I guess this part's important because you guys know, and this is part of how we know each other. So Mimi would invite me when I would go partying in LA for the weekend. She'd invite me to crash on her futon, which I did, and we'd have a blast. Like, we'd go out. One of my friends came up with me. We had a blast, whatever. And at one point I asked her, I said, "Wait, don't you work for Tony Hsieh? Like, I don't get it." And I'm like, I have to ask. Cause for so many years, I'm like, I'm not going to ask. It's none of my business. Something seems weird. They're not dating. Like, I don't. So I was like, one night after partying, and she's in her room trying on lingerie to send pictures to some guy. And I said,
Mimi Pham, the founder of OnlyFans. Sorry.
That's a joke for those that didn't get it. So so she says to me, she's trying on this lingerie, asking me what I think. And I said, "You know what? I thought you lived," and I just came out with it. I'm like, "I thought you lived in Vegas with Tony Hsieh. Like, I don't get it." And she's like, "No, well, yeah, but don't tell him that I have this apartment." And I'm like, "What?" It makes no sense. And I'm like, "Wait, he doesn't know that you live here?"
And
She's
so
like,
it
"No."
begins.
Yeah, so it begins. She said, "No, he thinks I'm staying on friends' couches." And I'm like, "Why does it fucking matter?" Like, I still didn't get it. So I'm like, whatever. I'm not going to ask anymore. That makes no sense, but I can't. It's none of my business. So anyway,
Yeah.
I decide to move to Vegas. Tony interviews me, hires me to be his handler for everything, his PR. I filtered his PR. There were 3 PR companies, including Christine, which came on later. And I filtered all the inbound requests because I get 500 emails a day. Most of them were PR related, and I had to filter them for him.
Yes.
I had to maintain his schedule. I had to travel with him. I actually hacked his fucking luggage and his toiletries
Book his
for
private
the record.
jets.
Yes, booked his private
Yes.
jets, which he didn't have many at the time. We flew Southwest because he was so humble
Yeah.
about it. But we did
His
fly
private
private.
drivers.
Yep, private drivers. I had business relationships with all his drivers. I have them in my phone still. Some of them probably aren't driving anymore, but who knows? So anyway, I loved it at first. And then I moved into his house. I had my own room, the same room I would crash in. And Mimi's shit was everywhere. Her shit was everywhere. And here I am managing his book launch. So he hasn't launched the book yet. He's distributing the galleys, the preprint copies, to bloggers to try to like amp it up. And the launch was in April. No. Yeah. When was it? I don't even remember. Or June? I don't even fucking know.
June. It was June.
It was June.
I think it was
April
June.
was,
but we got there. Yeah.
Yeah. So April was when I moved to Vegas and started this background stuff, like mailing the galleys. And Mimi was never around, and I knew that she was in LA, but I wasn't supposed to tell Tony, and it was just weird. Well, then she finds out that
well, I moved there too, Holly, remember? I moved there in April.
Right. So it was only in April? Okay.
Yeah.
So right after, it was that fast? Oh my God. So quickly, obviously, we learned.
So Tony's back was out. Remember, Tony's back was out.
I forgot about that.
And you called me.
Yeah. Oh, Christine, I didn't hear you.
I said, of course, Patricia moved there. She doesn't mess around.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was like,
Holly, it took some coaxing, but Holly explained it to me. Holly, remember his low back was out. Something happened.
Yes.
And he hurt himself.
Yes.
And then,
Yeah. I forgot about that. So I said, Tony, we need help. Like I was flooded. Like it was too much. And I couldn't be everywhere at once. And I was flying with him as well. Like we were all over the country. And I think I counted once 150 interviews in 2 months. Like I was on a plane, a train, a taxi. Like we didn't have Uber at the time. So I'm like, Tony, we need someone here to do the stuff at the house. And he's like, oh, I said, well, I have someone. And he's like, okay. I'm like, okay. So Patricia uprooted herself from
newly pregnant
with her daughter. Your son was 5. And
yes.
So you moved into Tony's house as well. And it was a huge help. And eventually, so right before
I think I was shipping books as well.
You were shipping the books. Yep. And I was flying in and out and like telling you like, here, do this, whatever. Well, then Mimi starts getting involved, and she wanted access to Tony's credit cards and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, why do I need to give you you're not here? And so Tony, I was like, all right.
He told you to have a talk with her. He told you to call her.
Yep. He told me to call her and to tell her to clean up all her shit. He wanted me to be the bad guy because he doesn't want to be the bad guy. Yeah. And that she needs to get her shit clean and put it in that little maid's quarters that she was living in, which was also huge.
I was there. I was there when he told you that. Yeah.
Oh, right. And she lost her mind. And then
she flew out the next day.
And I think that was the same time when she gave you, and this is right before we met Christine. So I'm getting to Christine, but after she flew out, she gave you a huge black trash bag of papers and a box of papers, a paper box to throw away.
She told me to go in her closet. It was hiding in her closet in the guest room.
I didn't know that. Oh my God. Okay. So
yeah, you were in Tony's library at the time. Yeah.
Yes, I remember that. And I can picture you holding it and saying, Holly, she just told me to throw this away. What do I do? And mind you, I am not showered. I am exhausted. I'm responding to 500 emails a day. Like I'm a mess.
Yes, that's exactly what you were doing.
That's what I remember at least. And I'm like, oh my God. So I stopped everything because I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So
it was bank records. I was like,
all bank
records.
Statements
for bank.
The whole thing.
And checks.
Yeah. Was it Citigroup? I think it was
Yes.
Citigroup. Okay, so I told the
We
lawyers.
poured it out onto the floor in the library.
Yeah.
We poured it out, the entire bag. Yeah.
Yes,
And
we
looked
were like,
through it. And we were like, what the heck?
yes, and I was like, wait, this is Mimi's handwriting, and this is different handwriting, and then she was writing checks to herself, and you can find this on the Daily Mail thanks to Christine, because we all sung. And
Yes.
she was writing checks to herself for thousands of hundreds of thousands of dollars over if you add it all up, right? Like, and
Hundreds of thousands.
right. And did you save any of it? I did, but I ended up getting rid of it and I'm pissed.
No, I mean, I think we have it somewhere, Holly. You and I have those photos somewhere. On
Oh, we
either it's on like an extended hard drive in our storage or something, but it's there.
we took
We have it
pictures
somewhere. Yes.
We did. Oh, all right. So I didn't even remember that either. So we saw these checks being, she wrote, for example.
Well, because we wanted to confront Tony. We
Yes.
knew that evening when Tony came when we all sat and had a few drinks, we were going to download Tony.
Yes, because we were like, does he want his bank records being thrown away? Because there's no financial officer managing his shit. He died and he didn't have a will. So,
we confronted, I confronted him too. Yeah. We confronted him about why she was writing herself thousands of dollars of checks every month.
What you remember it better than I do, but he was basically like, I don't want to talk about it.
He minimized it and became very like, almost like a dog with his tail tucked under, kind of like shamed.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It was strange.
Isolating.
So we felt like
it's very bizarre.
Yeah, I think
especially considering that he had asked you, get a hold of Mimi and have her move out, have her get her stuff out, get her out.
Yeah,
because he knew. Yeah,
he did.
But
know.
Go ahead.
So Christine,
I want to say, it's definitely a case of fraud, check fraud, that I hope that someday somebody's going to look into. It's very clear that she committed check fraud from what I'm hearing. And I think having met Tony, that I think it was been, very difficult for him. I don't think he had the capacity or the insight. He was such a little broken bird who wanted everybody to be good and happy. I don't think he had the capacity to even go into a place that somebody would be doing that. And the mistrust, it was easier for Tony just to block it out, which I think.
I think
how the world
exactly.
Yes,
exactly. I think too, Christine, off of that was that, around that same time, he was really big on the philosophy of his book, Delivering Happiness, and the passion, purpose, and profits. And like, I think running his company, I think he tried to adapt the core values of his company, Zappos, into his personal life. And I think he got lost in being manipulated by Mimi, the passion, purpose, like really it speaks to like the dynamic of the passion that he had, the purpose of what you're doing. Like he tried to make his employees happy, right? That was the whole idea, was like, make my employees happy. And then that will spin off to the purpose, and the profit will come in because people are passionate about what they're doing. And I think what happened with Mimi is she came in on a very humbling time for him, where he was into this whole focus, and she just came in and manipulated and used him and used his money. And it's so sad.
She definitely read the chapter on profit.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah.
She did. Yeah. And she did. And and so
even I respect Tony for what he achieved in his earlier business.
Oh, yes.
Hundreds of millions of bucks. I do think, God rest his soul, in hindsight, he should have taken responsibility and stepped up and faced these issues.
Well, I think Tony was Tony wanted to solve a problem with people. And he wanted to solve a problem with his business, in his business mind. He wanted to solve a problem in the workplace, in creating company culture. But I think it just, as soon as he brought Mimi in to take, she took the seat. It just.
A fish, the head when the fish is dead, the head stinks.
Yeah.
It's on Tony. He's a businessman. He was a vulnerable person and a very loving person, but let's call he was also an extremely brilliant mind. And
Yes.
when you have responsibility and choices to people like he did to Mimi Pham and Jen Lin and all those people,
Yeah, he was
he-
a creator for sure.
yeah, he chose to do that.
He did.
Chose to give that responsibility to Holly, which is not her but he was intelligent enough to share that wisdom and that insight and put that responsibility on somebody else. So listen, he's a great guy, but there's a responsibility as a businessman that you have to take. It's not Holly's job. It's not your job to do like
Yeah,
these.
there was a week. What is it? A weak link, right? Like there was the weak link
Yes.
that came in.
It was her.
It was Mimi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after this discovery of documents happened, Tony dismissed that. Mimi flew in, like you said, the next day, or it was that day she was there, I think, already.
Well, she took him out back and started crying, which
She was
was like a form of
hysterical.
she was manipulating
Yep.
his heartstrings, right?
Mm-hmm. And she cried to us.
And he
she
got
said,
sucked in.
"You don't understand. Tony's all I have." I'm like, I'm not questioning that, like your relationship. I'm saying, what the fuck? What, your money? Like, what? So she's like, "Oh, you don't understand." And I was even manipulated. I didn't buy her bullshit, but I was like, well, there's nothing I can do. It's up to Tony. So, but
Right.
because of speaking up, me being in a way naive, thinking Tony would do what was right because he's my friend, but he didn't.
Right.
And he allowed Mimi to
'Cause we
manipulate
didn't-
everyone.
Well, we didn't know at the time there was some other element that was missing that we
Right.
weren't privy to.
Right.
That was leading her into manipulating him, holding guilt trip over him.
Yes.
So
exactly. And that it took him dying 10 years later for us to understand all of this, which is so unfortunate. You know, we
painful.
tried, yeah, and we tried to stop it and tried to figure it out when it started, because we were one of the first ones. Well, after he passed, all the shit that's coming out in the book and Wonder Boy, and which they did a great job, all the shit, like I read that after knowing most of it, and I still was shocked. Like I'm still learning more.
Yes. Yes.
So like we were the first ones, the three of us. And so Christine
Yeah.
came in. So during the actual book launch, it was the Vegas launch party. And we were trying to court Tony into hiring Christine, because Tony,
Yes.
the two PR firms that he had were radio and TV, and the other was
Yeah.
speaking engagement.
He was wanting more magazine. He was wanting more
Celebrity.
of celebrity.
Yeah.
And we knew Christine. I called Christine immediately and said, we've got to get you in on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
And
Patricia was the link.
Tony listened to us.
He did. And then you
Yeah.
invited Christine.
He wanted the tabloid weeklies like Us Weekly, OK Magazine.
Right.
And they picked him up as the book read of the holidays, you know, like when you're like on the beach, you take the one book with you. So that was really great.
And Christine, what was the name of that store in Santa Monica? Every picture tells us. Yes. That was fantastic. Yeah.
Amazing. A great venue because it had all the classics, every great book ever written, and the original art, the actual original art from those books. So there was like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of original art, and it was such a great respected place. We had such a great book signing for Tony.
Yes.
And then the One Hope Awards.
That was a blast.
At the Vineyard.
Bringing One Hope into the picture. Yeah.
You brought One Hope Wine, Christine, into the picture.
Yes.
So Christine and One Hope Wine showed up. We invited her and them to the Las Vegas book launch party, right? And that's where I had the
what was that event? Where was that event held? I forget what it was.
At,
it was
one of the clubs.
Where was that in Vegas?
I remember my son meeting Tony Hawk. And
yes, that was at that event center.
That was
there
massive.
in Vegas.
Was it?
Do you remember?
Conference
it was
center?
huge. There was Tony put a zip line through the entire thing, and there was giraffes and zebras and who knows, like what else?
I never got to actually enjoy it. I had to sit and like get the book signed. I don't even remember the zip line. Like,
I
and
have
Christine.
a story. It's really quick if I can
Oh
get it
yeah,
in.
yeah.
It's like I was talking to Tony briefly, which was always briefly because I didn't really have that much interaction with him. Like I didn't even know he liked me till I met him. I came all the way back to Los Angeles. Like that was a waste of time. And then my phone, and he put me on a plane that go to New York and to meet Ivanka Trump. But at the Vegas event, I was telling him that my son, who was 12 at the time, I said, "Oh my goodness, Tony Hawk's here." And I said, he's obsessed. He's obsessed. And
Yes,
he called me over like
I remember that.
Yeah, he called me over like 15 minutes later. And he said, "Where's your son? Bring him." So I brought Oliver over. And he said, "Oliver,
Yeah,
Tony Hawk." And I was like, this guy has 500, 800 people in this room. And he wanted to make Oliver happy.
Yeah.
So much going on.
yeah,
But he
yeah.
never let it go. So when he saw Tony, and he's got hundreds and hundreds of people pulling him left, right, and center. And that said a lot to me that, he loved children.
About Tony.
And he did want to make dreams come true. And he did want to deliver happiness. And my son still talks about that.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
See, and same with your son,
Elijah.
Elijah. Yep.
Elijah, we lived in his house. So Elijah has special needs. Elijah has autism. I didn't know it at the time, but Tony was so patient with Elijah, running around like a wild, crazy. Tony would throw Elijah in the pool, shoot him with water guns, like play with him. And Elijah could never remember. Every day Tony came home, Elijah goes, "What's your name? Hey, what's your name? Hey, what's your name?" It was Tony Hsieh. And I was like, "It's Tony, Elijah. Hey, what's your name?" And Tony would go up to him and go, "Elijah, I want to teach you how to say my name so you remember." And he was so patient and loving. And he goes, "Elijah, touch your big toe." So he gets down and touches Elijah's toe. He goes, "Toe," and then point at your knee. And that's toe, knee. So whenever you see me, you're not going to say, "What's your name?" You're going to say, "Toe, knee." And so Elijah would go. Whenever Tony would get home, Elijah would touch his big toe and touch his knee and put it together, every time. And they would just run around crazy. I mean, it was a lot of fun. And I was so thankful. Elijah would do crazy. My son would run around in a bathrobe, and be totally naked under this thing. And he would run around and chase. And Tony would be like, Elijah, put some clothes on. Put some clothes on. So like they would do all kinds of goofy things together and have a lot of fun and get in gunfights and watch. Tony would download cartoons specifically for Elijah to watch. So it was really a gift to watch Tony interact with children and love on them and try to hope for the best and try to teach them in such a patient way. Because he could have got mad, irritated, and, he was brilliant.
Yeah.
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 So
Christine came into the picture, and then Christine, you came to the Boulder event. Right. And,
to be honest, like I love that you guys brought me on, but I'm just gonna call it. It was a shit show.
Yes, good. I was gonna have you talk about this.
It was busy. It was busy.
On anything where it's like if you're doing a tour, you get the dates 2 weeks ahead, so you can call the local radio stations, you can call Breakfast TV, and it's what I do for a job. And I didn't even have a schedule. It changed every day. And they'd say, "Oh, tomorrow we're here." It's like, you need more than 24 hours notice to call a major news outlet. And I cared because I felt like I was failing. Like I couldn't get anything together because I didn't.
We all did.
And nobody cared. There's all these people working for him, not you, not you two, but the other people. They didn't care.
They did not give a shit.
Wasn't their money. They didn't give a shit. They were literally and figuratively on the delivering happiness bus. It was just a free ride. So nobody cared. It was just bonding with him on the back, getting messed up, whatever. No one cared about the schedule. Waiting, buying merchandise that no one's gonna see. You should have had hundreds and thousands of people showing up and done every TV station, radio station.
Yeah.
Couldn't get it scheduled.
No.
It was crazy. And I felt really embarrassed, So I'm
Yeah.
like, what am I going to do here? So like every good publicist, I got wasted.
Right. And the thing is, I think we're people like Ryan Walker. Ryan Walker cared so much. And some people
Ryan
actually
Walker was
cared.
amazing. Yeah.
And but most of the people didn't know Tony as well. They were just brought in. So they were like, what do we do? So they were just fell in line and did what they thought Tony wanted them to do. So it turned into
A guessing game.
a guessing game. Yeah.
Funny.
And it turned into an absolute shit show because there was no structure and Tony didn't want to deal with
Egos.
confrontation. And then egos involved. Then Mimi threw her and she injected herself into it. She wasn't even supposed to be there. And she took over everything. It was an absolute disaster. What?
It was actually Jen Lim.
And her. So I
Oh,
actually
and Jen.
Tony's voice.
I remember Jen.
Was like a parrot sitting on, one of those dolls, sitting on her knee, and she would control this.
I think her job was to just get drunk with him as much as possible. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I remember that.
He told me, want anything.
Listen, I was home sober, pregnant with a
Yeah.
baby, so working for Tony. So I got to watch on the sidelines, not being, having a few drinks and out traveling the world with you guys, but from the sidelines. And when you did get home, I did notice that Jen just enabled and continued to just allow Tony to continue drinking. And if he needed a drink, it was like, okay, I'll get that for you. You want that? I'll do that for you. Yeah. You're going to get that. Oh, you want to try that? Let's
and
get
not
that for
just the
you.
drinking, but enabled the lack of confrontation. So at one point, I was so down in the dumps for like the whole tour, but I was so down in the dumps. That
remember.
Yeah. And Patricia pulled me out of it and we'd have to be on the phone because I was traveling. I mean, I flew home for my grandmother's wake. No one called me. No one texted me. No one said a fucking word. And I was in charge of buying flowers for people who's, connected to the tour, like on our PR company that we were working with. One of her father died, or her brother, I can't remember. But I sent the flowers as on behalf of the team, but no one sent me anything when my grandmother died. And the only thing that I got was a text from Mimi Pham saying, "Are you coming back for the red carpet event in LA, the Red Bull one with One Hope Wine? We need your ticket if you're not coming." And on the magic show too, which I didn't go to, but I was like, go fuck yourself. Like, my grandmother just died.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you when I'm coming home, just
You
whatever.
know what's funny, Holly, is I messaged Jen Lim at that time and I said, I think that Holly is in a very low place, being demoted, being cut off by Mimi. The intentions behind it, I have no idea what, but I do know that we're on a delivering happiness tour. You guys are launching your delivering happiness. Everything's about happiness and delivering happiness. How is it that Holly is literally almost suicidal and no one is helping her?
Yep.
I thought this was happiness.
Yeah. And she talked to me. I didn't know you had emailed at the time. And she talked to me the next day and it was like a nothing burger. It was like she was like, "How are you doing?" And I'm like, okay. Like, I didn't trust her. So I didn't really tell her. I said, well, I'm upset. Mimi's doing some things. I don't understand who's supposed to do what. The whole part of this is that the whole point of this is for us to have direction and purpose in our lives and be happy, right? Purpose, passion, profits. Like, it's the same thing. And no one's.
And that's what I was questioning. That's why I emailed her, because I was like, what on earth is happening?
Yeah, no one cared.
Where's our core values? Like,
there weren't
what
any.
are we doing? There weren't any. It was just, if you could party and drink, you're in.
Yep. They did drugs too.
And hang out and do drugs, then you're cool. But if you can't, if you're not, which I was pregnant, I wouldn't do it anyway. But
I wasn't even invited to do it. They just
observing from the outside, Holly, it broke my heart for what you went through. And it's stayed with me all these years. I mean, it's just a heartbreak. I expected more of Jen.
I want to talk about every detail of Zappos and them too much. I don't.
No, we're not.
I don't think they deserve the time, to be
Yeah.
honest. I'll talk about Tony and what happened and
Yeah.
how we got there. But, you know, that tour and that team, not you guys, but the people that he thought were closest, it was, the irony is insane.
It's insane.
People being on the road
I
waving
think-
happiness and glow sticks, and
Yeah.
and it was the most depressed debauchery. It was.
I think they did what felt good. They did what felt good and what they wanted, but really it wasn't what anybody needed.
It wasn't.
And it did not symbolize the happiness movement, the delivering happiness.
Right. And
was not
Tony
what-
tried
what
to
happened.
start the process of coming up with our own core values like he did at Zappos. So
Well,
he
the
was
tour-
trying to do.
I have those emails.
Yeah.
I have
and,
those emails.
and
Told any
but we
book.
didn't. I said, where's the rest?
there was no rest. He stopped. He just gave up. It like just it vanished into thin air. Like we're like, well, aren't we going to actually do this? Or, no, it never happened. So
They
That's
sent me
when
a
I
bus.
feel like things started going.
they sent you a
Ooh.
bus.
Well, we all got a bus, right?
bus.
With our name.
Oh, hold
Like
on 1 minute. Let me get mine.
I was laughing because they spelt my name wrong,
No way.
which summed up the entire facade. I mean, you know, that tour didn't sell books.
No, it
That
didn't.
tour was a failure.
Yeah, it was. And it was, I think Tony just wanted to have fun with his friends. But the problem is, because that's how it started. It started as a very small 2-week thing, and then it turned into a 3-month thing. And there were people that came to, there's the bus. It came to me afterwards saying, Holly, I am affected. Now I see what you went through. I'm like, well, it's a little too fucking late.
Dude,
You
I
know-
was drinking there. I came home after I was like, I'm done. I'm out. It was like intense. And you can't
Look
not-
what I got.
The bus.
Look what we got. We got a bus, you guys.
I love
That
it.
was it. That was so good.
Holly, you had to join in the partying and the drinking, because we did. Because if you didn't, you were kind of ostracized. It was bizarre. It was like
Yeah.
if you're with the cool kids, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And Christine, tell the listeners what you had to do on the red carpet to remove Tony's drink.
Oh, that was, he flew me to New York. He was doing a red carpet event. And so when I knew things were pretty serious, and I just left Vegas, they put me on a plane. I went, and he introduced me to his longtime friend, Ivanka Trump, President Trump's daughter, obviously. And she was very charming, very beautiful. And she wanted to take a picture with him. So, she, you know, he wants to put his arm around her. She's, you know, you could tell she had a lot of time for him. And Tony's holding this drink. It's got to be like triple, quadruple vodka. And, you know, I'm very fully aware.
Grey Goose, by the way, because I bought those for him.
Yeah, I'm very aware about red carpets. I'll take a person's jacket or purse, drink. You know, you want to have your hands free and focus and have a clean shot. And I tried to take the drink out of his hand, and it was like this, like a tug of war. And I'm like, Tony, you don't want to be having drinks on the red carpet. You're with Ivanka. You know, I wanted it nice. And then
Was it Jen or Mimi? Jen.
said to me, like, I Thursday. She just said, you can't take his drink. I go, Jesus is really upset with me. Like, what did I do? She goes, like, don't ever take his drink away from him again, ever, or it's going to be bad. It was basically like, take his drink away from him and you're kind of fired. And that was when I knew,
Wow.
I'm working for a full-blown raging alcoholic, and B, this is the enablers.
Yeah. Clear as
Those
day.
are the yes men. Those are the yes men, right?
Yeah.
Do what you're,
Well, you're
or you
feeding,
won't get paid.
you know, you're feeding an addict. Like, I've stopped drinking, and my friend came over and she brings wine, and it's like, you're not my friend, go.
Right.
You know, and when someone says, I don't drink, doesn't work for me, and I don't have a healthy relationship with it. It makes me sad.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I see it. I mean, I went to his house. He had a bookshelf about 30 feet high, must have had 500 empty bottles of vodka on it. I mean, if that's not a red flag, I don't know what to tell you. It was
I'm gonna-
I feel like
unbelievable.
you guys, I feel like with Tony that he had this humbleness about him and this quietness, but I think that he wasn't prepared for all the fame
he
that he
wasn't.
had
Right. And that's
in
not his
running
fault.
that CEO company. And I think that there's just this, you know, there's this how to cope with that was that was his calming thing was his alcohol, you know, his
I don't think
drug
so
use
much,
and his
Patricia.
it was his self-soothing.
I don't think so much it was fame, because I still talk to people that have never heard of him, but they've heard of Zappos. What I do believe, and it's my opinion,
Well, when you have Oprah in your workplace,
what I believe is it was the money, and with the money comes the vultures. He could have handled
exactly.
He could have handled the fame. He
Exactly.
had you, he had Holly, he had good people. It was
Well-
the money, it was the sycophants, and it was the vultures, and that broke his
felt
heart.
this. Yeah, I felt this in the end, even though I was actually working with Tony the summer before he died in through October, even the beginning of November, which
Right.
was really hard. It was during COVID. But I remember the people in his circle that were all consuming. And pretty soon it got to him so much that he had no more say so. He had no
Yeah.
more. It
He
was
was-
everyone else. He
he
wanted
was-
everyone else to.
He was
Patricia,
enabling
can you
it.
explain what you saw, how he was, because he
He-
was in
He,
full-blown
he
addiction.
allowed it.
No, but
Yeah.
he was completely
Yeah.
gone at that point. He tried to take his life. He was gone. How did you feel
Yeah.
about
I was on a phone call with Tony, and it ended up being other people running his money,
Yeah.
running his finances.
And it
Well,
was
I
at the end.
never even heard it.
I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about you were with Tony a year before he died, and that was when he was in full-blown decline, addiction.
Yes.
You're a healer. Like, how did you feel about that when you saw that? Did you feel like you could reach out to someone?
I kept asking. I asked to talk to him alone, just him.
Yes.
And they wouldn't allow it. They wouldn't let me talk to him.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
yes.
that
It happened to my
that
other
said
friends.
everything to me.
Yeah. That's insane.
And Tony, but yeah, Tony initiated the phone call with me, but it had to be other people speaking with me. He was on the Zoom call without a camera on and communicating. And it broke my heart. I had hung out with Tony even a year before prior, and a year before that, I was down at the Tiny Living community doing massage therapy that Tony asked me to come in and work on the community. And I worked on Tony and a few others, but there was that same feeling like other people were just running the roost.
It was
And,
basically an
a lot of ego.
Yep. It was basically an enlarged version of what we were dealing with in 2010. So like you and I, it started with Mimi because she was the ultimate kingpin kind of thing. So she controlled it back then on a smaller scale, and then she controlled it all the way through his death to like the biggest magnitude you could even imagine. Like I still can't even.
The downtown area that he set up into this community, that you said that she was in charge of, that was a shit show, because that was just a drug and alcohol fest where two young people actually took their own lives.
There were three. Yeah.
Three.
Yeah.
Three
right, Patricia? You were there for that, right? And they were trying to get the PR to be quiet.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
They really were. I mean, it was people in the community that were trying to minimize it. Right.
That's awful.
Yeah.
And that was what I went through is a microcosm of what they went through, and they killed themselves. I'm not saying I was going to kill myself, but it was bad. And
well, Holly, it was bad.
Very bad.
Let's
not
candy coat that.
People committing suicide within a year when they've gone there to find sanctuary and peace and guidance.
I think a lot of people were looking for mentorship, leadership, mentorship. And it ended up being like you, Christine, like you were going to say, like ended up not being that.
Yeah, I agree.
They wanted guidance and mentorship, when they went into basically a drug and alcohol commune. There was a total shit show as the vultures circled Tony Hsieh as they took their napkins with their hundreds of thousands of dollar promises, and the vultures were picking and picking, and he was barely alive still.
Exactly. That's exactly
And
what
they
was happening.
continued. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just,
He isolated and they continued to support it when he needed help the most.
yeah. And you don't know, when I was in that situation that I was in, I didn't know what to do. I felt helpless. I was so elated that I'm on this tour and it's like I could see my future in front of me and I had all these plans, and Tony was trying to help me meet people by hiring me so that I could meet people to start my concierge business that used to be a hobby. Like, he had started doing that before he hired me. He was introducing me to club managers and bars and bartenders and owners and promoters and all sorts of people that he knew to help me
Lux
launch my
Deluxe.
business. Yeah, Lux. Let's not go there. So even before the book launched, he was doing that. And when he hired me, he said, "See, this is a great way for you to help me, but also grow your connections for your business." I'm like, who thinks it? It was just amazing. So I was so elated that my friend is thinking of me to bring me along for this ride to help me, and then ends up hurting me in a way. Because it still helps me to this day. Like, I am forever eternally grateful for that, for what we did.
That's one thing I have to say, Holly. I agree with you and Christine. We all can say that even though this was some of the worst times in our lives, and it's been so painful every year of grieving huge losses, we've learned so fucking much about ourselves in a way that we can actually flip that script into serving a better purpose for our lives and others.
And
it has been painful. Yeah.
It was so painful, but it helped me through politics. It helped me through looking things through Tony's lens.
Yes.
I can now put myself in his shoes at certain points. Like, there were times where I'm surrounded by people, but never felt so alone. I'm like, oh, okay, this is what the celebrities talk about. Like, I get it now. And so I can apply that to other parts of my life and be more mindful and self-aware of, like, people, when you become a public figure, like me running for small town politics, you have to be mindful of how people see you, because for a long time I didn't get it. I was like, oh, I'm just Holly McNamara, whatever. No, but there's a time and a place, and you have to do certain things a certain way. And that's the whole point of this podcast, is like,
or we
how
think
do you
we
keep
do.
right? And how do you keep your authenticity while still being, and I finally managed to do that.
I don't agree with what you said at all.
What do you think?
I think fuck them.
Well,
be mindful for what somebody thinks about you. You need to be mindful about what's coming out of your mouth and what you represent.
Well, that's okay.
Who are you showing up as today?
So I don't care what anyone thinks of me. That took me years to get. I don't care what anyone thinks of me. I think what I was trying to say is kind of what you just said, because no, we shouldn't care. Fuck them. I totally agree. And it took me years to get to that point as well. But you have to be mindful. Like, when I was elected, I was like, oh, I'm a public figure now. Like, holy shit, people are looking to me. Like, they're looking at me with a microscope, like looking at my actions and looking up to me. And I have to be a leader. I'm here to lead. And Tony was not mindful of the fact that he was a leader and a public figure. Like, he was not prepared for that either. So, like, it's like, Tony, you have people on this small bus that are turning to you to help solve problems, and you're just.
Yeah, because it's Zappos in the workplace, it worked for whatever reason. It worked. His passion project, but in real life,
that Tony could be mindful of that when he was clearly a full-blown alcoholic and addict since the day we met him.
I think that I know there's functioning alcoholics, and I know plenty of them in CEO space, you name it. But this was different.
Yeah, I didn't see the alcohol get in the way until the very end.
It was very functioning.
I mean, we all drank a lot, and I partied a lot, whatever. But Tony did it as a social lubricant, and it worked for him for a while. But at the end, it got so out of control. And but
I remember the vodka story I just told you.
Yeah.
With Trump.
Oh, I know. I
Do
know.
you remember one of his last interviews, Holly?
No.
It looked like a meth addict. It was heartbreaking.
But
They should have taken him, and they should have taken him to a beautiful hospital, and they should have put him in there for 6 months, and they should have taken care of him and looked after him.
good
They
people
watched
tried.
slowly, painfully self-destruct. It was a beautiful soul, and they
Yes.
destroyed it.
Yeah.
Excuse me for a moment.
Yeah. And I think part of it too, remove the alcohol for a minute, because that's not completely to blame, because with or without the alcohol, Tony still did not want to deal with he did not like confrontation. He even said it during his speeches that he hated public speaking. He hated being in front of people, but he knew he had to do it. And so I don't think Tony was meant to be an actual leader, because you have to be, when you're investing in people and you're part of their board or whatever it is, you have to be mindful of like the fact that you're in a very important role, and you have responsibilities that come with that role.
He
And
was painfully shy, right, Holly?
that too,
Painfully
yeah.
shy. He was a beautiful man. Like I told you how what he did with my kid. I didn't know him as well as you and Patricia at all. But what I saw of him, one thing beautiful man, beautiful soul. He wasn't a leader. He wasn't a Steve Jobs. He's not Jeff Bezos. He's not Elon Musk.
He's Tony Hsieh.
But he was great at coding. But
Yes.
he wasn't great at being he was very shy, and he wanted peace and happiness and fun. He was a unicorn and rainbows kind of guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
To bring happiness to everybody. The sad thing was, because he was so pure of heart and so wonderful and vulnerable, that's when
Yes.
you become a target.
Yes.
With hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And when you are so vulnerable and you are so beautiful, and he really was, he didn't understand. And he was like, he didn't care about the money. He's like, oh, hell, take it, whatever.
Yeah.
But it mattered. And that was the disease that spread. And I think I can't speak to what he saw, but as somebody who sees other people, and I've experienced it in my own life, people use you.
Yep.
They use you, and they do, and it hurts.
It does hurt. Yeah.
It does hurt. It's hurt so bad.
Yeah. And it's hard.
With red carpets, and I haven't heard from anybody for a year, and post this Golden Globe shit, and I look at my phone, ladies, and I go 5, 4, and the phone calls come. Oh, I've missed you. Want to have lunch? It's like, it's that time of year again. Like you two, we're in touch all the time. I've invited you to everything. You can't come. We all live at different parts of the country. We have responsibilities, but it's like.
But we love each other, and we support each other.
Yeah, it hurts.
It does. And through the things like the book tour that we had to deal with, all those hard things, looking back, like that helped me to understand what it feels like to be used, because I wasn't before. Like I didn't know this ecosystem of people.
You got really shit on from the greatest height.
Thank you. Yeah, I did.
And what?
And it's navigating that, girls. It's navigating, how we come out of taking the golden nuggets out of all this shit that we've been through, and this moving forward. Like you guys are miracles to me, each of you.
You are too.
What was interesting was when Tony died. Just like we should touch on this because when Tony died, obviously we all cried. We knew he was dying before he had died. I had access to a video of him closing the door with the fire behind him, things that it was just awful. But when he died, and then the vultures, the biggest ones, they come swooping in with their napkins, their millions.
Yeah, that was
they know who
horrible.
they are. And then and I'm working with the Daily Mail. I'm doing stories and press. I was covering COVID lung, aliens, you name it, I was doing it.
Which I almost died of, by the way.
Oh, right.
I remember.
You called me in the hospital. You know who called me? You both called me while I was in the hospital. So thank you.
Yes.
I remember I could hear your lungs. You sent me video. It was heartbreaking. I thought we were going to lose you. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I did. But you were going to die. I think you did too, to be quite frank. But
Yeah.
Tony in death was raped as
Yes.
he was in life. And then when, we had a talk, and then you two had the courage to talk to Josh at the Daily Mail and give him your story. And I know you got slaughtered for it as well. Your keyboard warriors on Facebook.
Oh
Yeah.
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 We heard a
And
lot.
what's interesting is like that being in politics helped me revisit my Tony trauma from the book tour, and helped me respond to those people online that were responding to this Daily Mail article. Didn't bother me. I was like, go fuck yourself. Like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Where the fuck have you been?
Yeah.
And
Right.
yeah, and Christine, I remember because when I was casually telling you along with
I won't
Patricia,
say any names. I won't say any names.
no other names except the one we already mentioned, but I was casually telling you what I was learning about the madness of the last year of Tony's life, and it was just insane. Some of it's in the book, but some of it's
Yes.
not. And I was telling Christine, and
Is this
Christine's
the
like,
Wonder Boy book?
yeah.
Oh.
And I was like, what? Christine's like, oh, no, stop right there. This needs to go out loud. Like, this needs to be published somewhere. Let me introduce you to my friend Josh. So you and I talked with Josh forever. We told him he did a great job, and he looked up the court documents from Mimi from 2002, the ones that she was arrested on drug charges.
Can we mention that? Can we mention the fact that when she came over crying in the backyard to Tony and wanting, after being kicked out of his house by you and asked by Tony, asking you to do that?
Which she never did, by the way.
That is exactly what she was talking to Tony about in the backyard. The manipulation of, you owe this to me, Tony. You owe me. You owe me for covering you.
Yeah. She went to jail for drugs. Right?
Right.
In 2002, I think. And it's in so if the readers.
It's in the book. Yeah.
I think share the story you can't touch on, and then we're cryptic because it's out there, right? Legally.
Yeah, it's out there. Yep.
It's in the book.
It's in the Daily Mail too. So I'll put the link in the
Josh.
Josh, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
Josh won Journalist of the Year last year in Los Angeles.
Good for him.
Yeah. Did all the Hunter Biden
gosh.
laptop. He's a very serious, talented journalist, and he did right by you guys. He never misquotes. He does his research, and those articles that you two were brave enough to do with Josh for absolutely zero money, just loyalty to Tony in death, wasn't the biggest vulture of all suing for like $80 million from his estate or something? I can't remember.
I think she sued for everything he was worth. Almost $1 billion because she felt she lived at his address. And
she said
it
ended up being like 130 million of projected revenue that she thought she was owed, which the revenue didn't even exist yet, but whatever. That's a whole other story. So
this brings right back full circle. Like you were just saying how she got kicked out of his house, right? And all that. And how she came for hundreds of millions of dollars. This really ties it nicely in a bow. Because
she said she was his right-hand man. She was his, but it's funny is that Holly also was his assistant and lived at his address. And I was also his assistant and lived at his address.
Yeah.
But we didn't go after millions and millions of dollars.
I lost money helping him.
I didn't. Yeah, I haven't earned a penny.
What, Christine?
I was trying to finish a thought that was just saying that all that and her coming after it and her saying, that she didn't. It brings it back nicely to Holly, where you opened up the interview, how she was sneakily hiding in an apartment, having an apartment in LA. The whole starts with a lie. She was completely conning him and lying from day one. And then in
wow.
Yes, and it all came full circle. Like you said, tie it up in a bow, because in the end, it took a long time and a lot of shit had to happen, and Tony had to die because of it. which is the worst part, but it finally all came out that she was doing what she was doing, and she had to pay $800,000 back to the family. They had to settle because I think she would have gone to prison for killing him because she was providing the drugs. People were talking.
Yeah. She was an enabler in that as well.
And they knew it.
Jen-
I talked to the lawyers
Jen
2
Lam.
days before her deposition. She just didn't know that.
Wow.
And she
Holly
pretended.
dropping bombs, Holly dropping truth bombs.
And she pretended not to know me in that deposition. So the lawyers had already
What?
spoken to me by chance. They had spoken to me. We hadn't done
I
the
have
Daily Mail
pictures
yet.
of the two of you.
Yeah. And in the Daily Mail articles hadn't been a thing yet. And I was flying to Vegas to meet, I won't say names, but to meet someone to talk about doing a documentary. And coincidentally, I posted the news article about Mimi suing the estate for 130 million. And I was like, oh, I'm done being silent. This is bullshit. So I posted this whole thing, and Tony's dad reached out to me and put me in touch. And I spoke with the lawyers and
I love
gave
him.
them everything, even told them where you put the files where
Yeah.
I thought
In the garage.
the
at
house
Southern
was,
Highlands.
it was a time capsule. It was still there. So
Yep.
they had everything backed up, and they went in. I don't know what happened at the deposition, but I know she pretended not to know who I was.
I
And she
knew
just-
exactly where those files were. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So they got her.
So glad.
And
You
now
know
the
what?
universe
You know what this
knows.
is about? It's about truth and truth integrity. I mean, it really has set us free in a lot of ways, realizing that after all these years of grief and confrontation and speaking the truth and actually confronting Tony and not seeing something happen that was proactive.
Yeah.
Seeing that seeing Mimi have to pay the price.
Yeah.
And I think
Literally.
it
Yeah.
felt really good to see that finally take place. And I think it's helped us to kind of have this potential of maximum impact of moving forward in our lives, because it kind of stagnated us for a bit.
It did. And I actually have down here to mention that you and I, and sometimes Christine, every year we'd rehash everything almost as if like we're trying to get closure. Every
Yeah.
year we'd rehash it for just, I don't know. And we kept thinking, oh, we're over it. We're not over it. I'm still not over it. And,
Right.
And I went on a tour bus this past, when was it? This past fall. Axl Rose's tour bus.
Yes, I was. Yeah.
And we called it the anti-TBT tour, which is no tour bus trauma.
Is this with Steve?
Yes.
Yes. I ran into him too.
Yeah. So we drove it across the country, and the theme was anti-TBT, like no tour bus trauma. This is going to be it was a healing trip. It was, because every time I saw the tour bus, I got anxiety.
We should mention who Steve is and how he was related to all this.
So Steve came in halfway through the bus tour, which was a 3-month tour, came in halfway through to help
With
the
Tony
current
Hsieh.
drivers, and then became Tony Hsieh's personal driver when the tour was over. Steve is amazing.
Yes.
So yeah. So
And he now is a driver for.
well, he has a few different jobs, but he was driving for Guns N' Roses for a bit.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, so the Daily Mail articles were kind of the culmination for us of like, oh my God, I can't believe we got this out to the universe. I can't believe it. I still can't believe it after all these years of harboring it, and it's finally out and we can deal with it. But the justice factor and like the closure factor applies to everything in life. Like I deal with it in politics, I deal with it in relationships, like it all applies, and it's just
And
crazy.
leaving a legacy for Tony as well. Like I think we all agree that Tony deserved to have, been left a legacy.
Right. And let's start right. And we don't have to harp on how the last year of his life was so awful, because before that, a lot of it was very positive, and the manipulators ruined it. I mean, they just literally killed him, in my opinion. So, but with all that being said, I know that's why we're so close, is because we're we're true to ourselves, we're
Because we
authentic,
care.
and we care about each other, and we're real and we're honest. And it brings me to a couple different things. One, Patricia being a healer, and talking more about like what you do day to day, and like kind of name drop some celebrities that you've done, if you can, that you've had as clients. And
I
then
mean-
Christine, I want to talk about comedy and how you've had to navigate being a stand-up comedian and like what that's like in today's world. Because, you know, it's
Wrap up the Tony stuff properly, which
Yeah.
was, you know, sadly, his last year of his life is remembered because he's
Right.
a cautionary tale. But luckily, there's some great movies and documentaries being made that's going to show the genius of him too, and what a really
Yes.
great he was. But I'd like to just say this, that what you two went through for all those years and your loyalty, I just want to say this, so let me finish. It's very important.
Yeah.
Is that together, I talked you around because you were both scared of the media, and rightly so. I have to tell you, all your experiences and everything you did, the two of you, single-handedly, and I mean this, single-handedly did right by him in death, which is more than I can say for those who worked for him in life. So you two, you did go through a lot, but you always kept hard. And when it came to the end, when they were still swooping in, I know that if there is such a thing as afterlife, you two did him proud, and it was nobody else. You may as well, you know, you got a couple of pieces of intel from the driver or from whomever you spoke to. I don't know. And that's up to them. But the reality is, out of the hundreds of people that came and went in his life, when he was gone, he wasn't forgotten by you two. And you actually protected him, and you did right by his parents, who I know were extremely proud of you. And that was brave, and you took flack. So what we all learned from that is, what I learned is you two are ballers, extreme loyalty. And I'm glad
I love you.
my corner, and Tony deserved you. I just wished that he'd seen it a little clearer in life. That's all I wanted to
Thank
say.
you, Christine.
Aw,
That
I
was
love
so
you.
nice. Thank you so much. And you know, it's hard for me to see the forest through the trees still. So I'm still forgetting, like, and it's that self-awareness, you know, I have to remind myself, like, yeah, I was part of that. That wasn't a dream. And Tony was
Yeah.
famous. He's not just your
Take
friend.
take
And-
a place at the table, my friend. Take a place at this table.
I love you.
I love you.
I love you both.
Know that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would not have survived without you guys. So thank you, Christine, for saying all that. It's just
It's
that
true.
helps.
Tough navigation it was.
Friend. I'm not saying that as a friend. I'm saying
Thank you
that
for being my friend. Yes.
as a publicist and just somebody standing by watching somebody do something right. And I know you were scared. I had those conversations, and you had to trust the journalist, and you didn't, and it made headlines. And that's the biggest news website in the whole world. And he got picked up, and you could have been sued, but you didn't. You got the truth, you got your facts, you spoke your truth. And I'm sure his parents thank you very much. And you know, some woman was going to literally take his entire fortune and legacy.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And guess what?
Yeah.
You two stopped it.
We did. It's about
That's
fucking time.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you,
we
Christine.
take this humble seat at the table here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me introduce you to Patricia. And let me Holly.
I love you.
So we should pat ourselves on the back. Wait, do you
I'm
guys
hugging you. I'm hugging you both.
do you see my
Yeah,
Zappos
sincerely.
thing right here?
Aw.
So this was when I went to Tony's
Dude, I can barely see the screen.
this is
Aw.
it's like a banner. It was on the back of all of the seats in the theater when it was his life celebration.
Yes.
So I took it.
Thank you for doing that. Yes.
Yeah.
That's part of your story, which is
Yeah.
powerful. Yeah. Thank you.
It's actually cathartic to talk about this, and this is going out into the universe. So it's like
It really is healing. Thank you. Like it
Thank
really
you.
touches a part of me that I feel like it's going to help. It's that those spaces in between that we've had to overstep and not go to because we couldn't.
Yeah.
And
it
now
hurt too much.
we're getting to go to those spaces, and it feels so good. So thank you, Christine, for saying all that you mentioned.
I think
And
I had more
Holly,
pain.
you do have a place at this table. We were there. Yeah.
Well, you have more pain.
I have my bus to prove it.
Yeah, I have my bus,
See,
but
did you get your name on the top?
yeah, they spelt it wrong.
That's okay.
No, it was, but I didn't feel as much pain as you two. I felt a lot, and I felt wasted talent and a waste of a human being, but I didn't have the pain as much. I was crying, no doubt, but I wasn't there as long as you. I had more rage.
Yeah.
And I'm known for it. You know, I get angry, I get even,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and I instigated that.
Yeah. And here we
Yeah.
are.
I don't like injustice.
I agree.
Like
Yes.
gold
I
digger-
agree.
Gold
I'm
digger,
all about justice.
yeah,
I'm
gold digger-
diplomatic.
Gold
Yeah.
diggers, users, get out of my way. I'm not taking prisoners. And then I brought you two in, and you felt the same way I did, and you're
Yeah.
brave.
And that's why we're so close. I trust you guys, and we're all justice
Yes,
seekers, you know.
I trust you guys. And I think that even like Christine said, I was a little bit shy about media and shy about interviews. And like you, of course, Christine, you're an expert in the field, and you're like, nope, you should do this call. And I'm like, Holly's like, yep, you should do this. And I'm like, oh boy, okay, I'm going to do it. And then, now it was the Daily Mail. Then it was Angel with the Forbes writer for this book, Wonder Boy. And now it's Ken. What is Ken's last name? Ken.
Yeah, oh no, let's not announce that. But
He's
yeah,
calling out.
yep.
Yep. So, it's just, I believe you guys. I trust you with my life, and I think I can say that with my whole heart, because we have had this journey, and it has been intense, and it has been painful, and we've ridden this roller coaster ride, and we're now seeing some light. And it's overall like I can't go back and say, I don't. It's just been it's created who we are now.
It has.
So I appreciate you.
It truly has. And when Tony passed, I had been in politics already for 5 years and dealing with media in a different medium, but just still dealing with media in a similar way to how I managed Tony's media inbound requests. So I learned from Tony how to deal with media in my political life. And it applies to everything. It constantly is helping me. Tony is still helping me. And
he's constantly speaking to me as well. I feel like that.
Yeah. And so, and then after he died, when the media was reaching out to me through however they heard of me, I don't know, but because they're professional, they don't tell me. But when they were reaching out to us, to all of us, I knew how to field it because of Tony, but because of politics, because of Tony. It's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like,
how
it's
are
all
you going to
connected.
show up? It's kind of like Tony would show up being that version of himself that surprised me all the time. Like I had asked him one time, I'm like, how do you go? You're such a shy, introverted person. Like, how do you even go on stage and speak to thousands of people that you do? Or when you go to the Zappos stage for the town hall meetings, like, how do you show up on stage and not like become more introverted like you are at home with me?
Right.
And he was like, you know what? I tell myself the brain doesn't know the difference between excitement and being fearful. So I tell myself I'm excited. So, and that is it was his like little secret. So he tells himself he's excited, and then he's able to go and do these talks. And then, it was like a little brain trick.
I love that.
But that stays with me. Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
I'm really excited here today. I'm excited to be here.
I liked him. I actually thought he was
that he was what?
But I thought he was a great speaker. The times I saw him, I thought he was captivating.
Yep.
And he should have done more.
Yeah, he would
he should have been a comedian, Christine.
No, that. Speaking of going on stage, I mean, every show I do, I'm literally found in the bathroom vomiting and crying.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta tell yourself you're excited.
There
No,
you
I just
go.
stop it. It's just fear and it's adrenaline. And then the adrenaline kicks in and that's what makes it happen.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm famous for it. I'm actually known. Everybody laughs and says, oh, she's in the bathroom vomiting.
But you look so relaxed on stage.
Oh, it's when I step on stage, something happens, you know?
Yeah.
Something, I become different. My friend was here from New York recently. I just had a big show at the Ziggy Hotel on Monday, sorry. I had Daryl Hammond from SNL. It was fantastic. Paul Oakenfold was my DJ.
Yes, I saw you spinning with
Yeah.
him on your birthday. He was
Yeah,
playing for your
fun.
birthday.
Yeah, he's great. But I'm terrified. And then I go on and, you know, and become something else. And people are like, and then I'm like, was I okay? Was I okay? And my friend says, you just identified as a cunt on stage, Christine. How are you upset now? How are you telling me you were nervous?
Because you don't seem so.
I honestly, it's adrenaline completely takes over. I improvise 80% of my set, which people criticize. Oh, you need to write your set. It's like, no. I improvise and it works for me, maybe not for others. It's terrifying, but you know, it's like I just said about how I feel about the truth, and what you two did was the truth. I don't apologize. I'm unapologetic. And if you're unapologetic and you have a good point, and you do it cheeky and funny, your audience has no chance but to agree with you.
I love that.
The truth does actually set you free.
You're right. You're right. You know, it's interesting the word choice you just used, because I always tell my therapist that I just want to be my unapologetic, authentic self in everything. And that you just explained, like, you know, something I'm striving to be at all times.
Yeah, people will always put you down. They'll always, if you ask somebody, oh, did I do okay? They're going to tell you what you did wrong instead of 9 things that you did right. I live with that. And I'm actually still learning to actually look at the source and look at how I felt and listen to the laughter. And also, I like to make a point about how I feel about the news, you know? Like, I'm very physical. I got a great review, which compared me to Chaplin, which was my, you know, he was my hero.
It's
You know, I sat
amazing.
so far on the left and I run over to the left. And then I go, but I haven't changed. And now I seem to be on the right. You know, because just the way the world has changed, you know, and I would make a joke about Donald Trump and mention his name and got booed. And I did, you know, Elon Musk as Optimus, that robot, you know, and I did this little joke. I was saying, have you seen Elon Musk's robot Optimus? And then I go, oh shit, now I got my Joe Biden joke all mixed up, you know, and I was, because Joe Biden walks a little
Yes.
bit like a robot, doesn't know what's going on. And it was funny because I saw the way people have changed, because I listen and the audience were laughing, and you can tell they're laughing because it's true, but they're afraid.
Yes.
And the world and the feeling in this country has definitely shifted. You know, like, people identify, like, I would jump all over the Me Too movement. It went crazy too far.
Yeah.
Things get out of hand. Everybody's apologizing for shit they didn't do. And everybody's hurt. Everybody's offended. Everybody should shut the fuck up and be nice to each other. Get a job. Get out of your mom's basement influencing.
Yes.
Because what is coming in
Yes.
this future is, I mean, people canceled my show because it rained.
What?
Yeah. Get back to me in like January when Russia goes to Germany. We'll see how you feel about a little thunderstorm, my friend. You know, it's like, we need to pull up, stop apologizing, go to work. Children need to be taught manners. They need to help. They need to send thank you notes. They need to be gracious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Self-entitlement, I feel that we've lost. And everybody's apologizing and protecting.
Hmm.
That's not the way the world is. That's not the world we live in.
You're right.
Yes.
You're 100% right.
Yeah.
You know, canceling your show for the rain. I mean, what are we going to melt?
I didn't
So,
show is canceling somebody because they said something you didn't like. You know what that used to be? A conversation.
yeah, right.
All a conversation. Like we just had a conversation for 90 minutes and all expressed views and not all the same because we all have a different opinion. Like your two involvement in Zappos and Tony and the movement was far deeper and more in depth than mine. So I come from an outsider who sees it in a different way. I was upset because it wasn't scheduled. I couldn't get a freaking morning show. I came, you were there with your heart. I was there watching like the drink thing, the red carpet, because it fucked up my red carpet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I see things from a different point, but we all agree and we all came to one thing. The one thing the three of us all had in common, we were there for each other. But when it came to the end, when the battlefield has closed and our leader has died, the three of us were like, we're going to pick up his body and we're going to respect it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
And he
Well,
wasn't
yeah.
out of sight, out of mind. This
Brilliant.
Brilliant. Yeah.
It's the least we can do. And there are people in Vegas, people I'd have never met, that are paying some great tribute to him, thank God. You know, on the side of his frequent rest.
Are they making a statue, Holly?
They made a silhouette, forget what when it's just the head.
A
Bust, yeah. So they did that. I can't remember exactly. I think it's right outside of Zappos headquarters. But then they have murals painted that I got to see them unveil with a nice plaque that has a saying and a QR code that you can read more about the painting and about Tony, and things like that, all in downtown. And I know when he passed, like they had his picture with the dates on almost all of the main casinos. I don't know what you call it, display, like the
When was the date of Tony's death?
It was on hold on, let me get it.
It was November. Shoot. Was it the 20?
It was November 27th, 2020.
I was going to say the 28th. Yeah.
There's a little bit of confusion because he was dying for a couple of days. Remember, there was all the false stuff.
Yeah, he was in a coma.
Yeah.
I know you like stand up. You know, I wanted to maybe this year the three of us will put together, get like really great stand-up comedians and do, you know, a tribute to him in Vegas or something like that.
Yeah.
And like that, you know? Truly,
like, yeah. And if we do, we really should make a big commitment to that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I can bring really great stand-up comedians that Tony would have enjoyed.
It would be fun. It would be really.
Do you guys feel like there's this frequency of Tony? Like, I feel like there's like this energy, like that even in Vegas, you can't pull into Vegas and not see something about Tony, right?
Yes.
Pictures everywhere. But there's just being personally knowing him, Holly, you know, just all of us, like there's something about him that still stays with us. It's like it truly is like a part of our soul. Like
it is.
Oh, that changed me like at a whole nother level of how I live each day and how I show up being in this world. And it really is about passion and purpose. And it is about trying to find happiness, but it's not exactly in the way that, you know, that everyone thinks it is. But I feel Tony's energy in that. And he is the influence of that.
I envy you because you're a healer. And I know your heart breaks. I know you're probably that close to crying right now. And even though I'm a soft
my tissue.
Yeah, I know. I'm a soft person, you know that. I love my friends. I love my son. I have a good heart. I do a lot for causes. But I'm sorry, you know, like what I took away from it, I became a bit more jaded, a bit more angry, a bit more sick of the bullshit, a bit disgusted. Like I wish I could go away and think, oh, I learned some purpose. I didn't. I'm like, fuck them. I'm going to destroy that bitch.
I actually agree with you because I feel both of
those.
I feel both of those things. And I do, because of politics and the bullying and all that shit, it's a different format of bullying, but it's a similar thing to the point where that's when Angel first called me to interview me for that book, The Wonder Boy.
When you were
I said,
angry?
Angel, you caught me at a very good time because I'm fucking done with politics. I'm fucking done with the Miss Mimi fam and being silent. I am going to tell you right now, this was our first conversation. I said to her, Angel, I'm going to tell you right now, put everything I say on the record, everything. And she's like, what? I'm
I
like,
was
no.
the opposite. I was like, is this going to be on the record?
Yes.
Patricia's hilarious when it's interviewed. She's such a novice and so trusting.
I'm like, are you sure that should be on the
I've been videoing you for 2 weeks. Tap your phone.
Yeah. And then I remember when I finally got in touch with Christine, because I hadn't talked to you yet, when I updated you guys and told, especially Christine, I was like, Christine, this is what's happened. This is what I told her. I hadn't talked to you in years. You were like, what's happening to you? You're like, you're so vocal. Like, don't worry. You were trying to like to say, don't worry, it's
Well,
okay. And I was like, I don't fucking care.
You know what? I really feel like, Holly, you were grieving so much, like Tony's loss in the middle of your political.
Yes.
Like, it was like too much.
It was
Yeah.
so much. No one has any idea. And then you that's a good point. I didn't even think of it before. But like it was all at the same time.
Ooh, it was
And
heavy.
COVID. It
Yeah.
was like what
I wanted to call you and do coaching with you and breakthrough sessions. And like, I was like, let's go into this. Let's
Yeah.
go in and try to heal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like,
and I
You're
needed
like-
it.
and yeah.
I needed it. And and things have finally settled. It's been 3.5
It's been
years.
beautiful to watch you settle
Oh, thank you.
right now. Yes. I'm so happy for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank God. Actually, let me tell you this. By the time this recording airs, which is this Wednesday night, I will have pulled papers to run for selectman in Somerset.
Oh, wow. Isn't that Valentine's Day?
Yeah.
What the heck?
That's the last
Oh.
day to pull papers, and I'm gonna drop a bomb and be like, yeah, I'm doing it. I have to. No one will do it. And the guy that's in there is the reason why I resigned. So I need to be the one to get him out.
There you go. You know what?
So-
Passion and purpose, baby. Tony
yeah.
taught you well.
He did. And I've healed. It's been 3 years. I've learned so much about myself and recovered, and I feel great, even though I'm still injured.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I
Come
feel
see
great.
me. Come see me.
Yeah, I need to come see you. And, maybe I will be at the end of the month for some filming
Yes.
and
Yes.
massage.
Yes. And then we'll drive over to Christine's.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I'll
then
do-
we'll go to Vegas to see our friend, which I won't mention his name, but
Yes.
to do
Yes.
filming for the
Yes.
documentary on Tony. Little teaser out there.
People were in Hollywood this week because a friend of mine was out in a restaurant with them, and they're shooting the movie on Tony.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And that's the other people I'm going to introduce you guys to
Yeah.
bring you in. I'm
Mhm.
so
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do
Who
you
do you
guys?
I wonder who they picked to play Tony.
Yeah, I wonder. It's gonna be interesting. I don't know. I want to keep talking. I know we could probably talk for 3 more hours.
I think do another interview or something because there's no way I'm feeling, up to talking about comedy.
Yeah, after all that, yeah.
Yeah. Let's set up another, a second.
Yeah,
plan.
we'll
Let's
do.
talk a little bit more about mental health and confidence
Yes.
and in this time and how to cope with this and the continual fear and being brave. I'd like to touch on things like and family and our children and the future for our children.
Yeah.
The things that really interest me.
Yeah, and all of those things, it'll be good for the listeners because we just walked them through how we met and like the importance of what we're talking about and why. And so now, after an hour and a half, 2 hours, they can now segue into the next episode. And they're listening to this right now, but they can segue into the next
Absolutely.
episode and now really have a full understanding of like why we are the way we are and why the three of us are, the friendship that we have and
Yeah.
what it's built on. And it applies to comedy. It applies to healing. It applies to even my engineering job. It applies to running for office. So like we can talk about those things in depth, maybe next week.
Oh, you know, if they didn't like the interview, they can be guaranteed that we can soothe them to sleep.
Yes. So why don't we can actually tell our listeners that this will be the part 2 will be the next episode. So you and I, we can all interview within the next week or so and line it up for the next.
We'll talk about this on the next podcast.
Thank you everyone for listening. The Salt Green is a podcast where politicians stop pandering and start getting real. This podcast is me, Holly McNamara, various co-hosts and guests. Our post-production is done by Pixella Films. For more content and all social media links, you can find us on thesaltgrain.com. Thank you for joining us while we take you into our world of public service, and be sure, as always, to take everything with a grain of salt.